Hip-hop has seen rappers survive shootouts, prison time, federal raids, addiction, betrayal, and some of the nastiest industry beefs ever recorded. But nothing hits harder than when the people exposing you are your own children. Because fans can ignore gossip blogs, they can ignore jealous exes, they can ignore internet rumors. But when a son or daughter goes online crying, leaking messages, exposing private pain, or publicly calling out a famous father, the internet listens differently. And trust me, some of these stories got unbelievably ugly. We're talking about rap legends getting accused of emotional neglect by their own kids, daughters exposing humiliating family secrets on live streams, sons posting heartbreaking screenshots after years of silence, children admitting they felt abandoned while watching millions of fans praise their fathers publicly. And in some cases, the damage became bigger than the rapper's actual music career. Because once social media sees a child publicly saying, "He wasn't there for me," the entire image changes instantly. From 50 Cent getting blasted by his own son over leaked text messages and years of bitterness, to Benzino being called out emotionally by Coi Leray while she cried on livestream, to Boosie Badazz getting exposed by his own daughter for how she says he treated her privately behind the scenes, this rabbit hole gets dark fast. And honestly, the scariest part isn't even the arguments themselves. It's the fact that many of these rappers built careers talking about loyalty, family, pain, and survival, while their own kids were sitting online feeling unheard, embarrassed, angry, or emotionally abandoned. But what allegedly happened after one rapper's daughter finally admitted, "You just don't care about my feelings," completely changed how fans looked at him forever. And once we get into the leaked screenshots, emotional live streams, viral interviews, custody drama, and heartbreaking public fallout, you'll understand why some of these father-child relationships may never recover again. One thing hip-hop has always respected more than almost anything else is authenticity. That's why fans become deeply attached to rappers emotionally. These artists don't just sell music, they sell struggle, survival, pain, loyalty, family, fatherhood, real life. And over the years, many rap legends built entire careers presenting themselves as providers, protectors, and strong family men publicly. But social media changed everything. Because before Instagram Live, TikTok, YouTube podcasts, and viral screenshots, celebrities could usually keep family problems private. If there was tension inside the house, the public rarely saw it directly. Now, one emotional live stream from a child can completely destroy an image built over decades overnight. And honestly, that's exactly why these stories hit people so hard emotionally. Because hearing criticism from strangers is one thing, hearing pain directly from your own son or daughter feels completely different. That's why the situation involving 50 Cent and his oldest son became one of the most uncomfortable father-son feuds hip-hop has ever watched publicly. For years, 50 Cent built an image as an unstoppable businessman and survivor. 9 bullets, street legend, TV empire, millions of dollars. The ultimate comeback story. But according to his son Marquise Jackson, fame and money didn't translate into emotional presence. And once leaked text messages surfaced, allegedly showing brutal conversations between father and son, the internet became obsessed immediately. Fans saw screenshots discussing deleted phone numbers, emotional distance, and painful family tension that looked way deeper than normal celebrity drama. The saddest part? Marquise openly admitted he once viewed his father like a superhero growing up. That emotional contrast destroyed people online. Because now the story wasn't just about money anymore. It was about disappointment. And over time, the relationship became so publicly toxic that fans started treating every interaction between them like another episode in a never-ending emotional war. But the deeper people looked into these stories, the more one pattern started becoming obvious. Many of these rappers allegedly struggled separating providing financially from being emotionally available. That exact conversation exploded around Future too. Because while critics constantly accused him of being emotionally absent from his children's lives, supporters pointed out that he continued paying child support and financially supporting multiple households. That created a huge debate online. What actually makes somebody a good father? Money? Time? Emotional support? Presence? The internet argued non-stop. And honestly, that emotional gray area made these stories even more addictive to audiences. Because most situations weren't simple. Take Lil Wayne, for example. Unlike some other names on this list, several of Wayne's children publicly defended him despite acknowledging how difficult growing up around fame could be. His daughter, Reginae especially, often spoke positively about him, explaining that despite his insane career schedule, he still tried staying involved in his own way. But even then, the emotional complexity remained obvious. 4 children, 4 different mothers, tours, recording, industry chaos. Fans still debated whether success at that level naturally creates emotional distance, no matter how much love exists. That's what makes these conversations so uncomfortable, because audiences start realizing fame doesn't magically fix family relationships. Sometimes it destroys them faster. And perhaps nobody exposed that emotional contradiction harder publicly than Coi Leray did with her father Benzino. At first, fans thought their relationship tension was normal entertainment drama, podcast arguments, internet trolling, industry ego clashes. Then she went live crying emotionally in her car. And suddenly the situation felt real. She accused him of acting bitter instead of supportive during the biggest moments of her career. She claimed he only reached out when he needed something. She described feeling emotionally unsupported despite becoming one of the hottest new female artists in rap. That livestream completely shifted public opinion, because people weren't just watching celebrity gossip anymore. They were watching a daughter sound genuinely hurt. And according to fans online, Benzino never fully recovered publicly from that moment emotionally. But the stories kept getting darker, especially when sexuality, identity, and public humiliation entered the conversation. That's where Boosie Badazz became one of the most controversial fathers in hip-hop discussions online. For years, Boosie Badazz built his brand around brutal honesty, street survival, and family loyalty. He constantly talked about his children publicly and positioned himself as a father deeply involved in their lives. But critics argued the way he discussed some of his children publicly crossed serious emotional boundaries, especially regarding his openly gay daughter. When his daughter Ivy finally addressed the situation publicly, fans immediately noticed something important. She didn't sound angry at first. She sounded exhausted. That made the livestream hit even harder emotionally. She accused her father of constantly discussing her sexuality publicly while allegedly refusing to understand her privately. She described feeling emotionally dismissed and unsupported while millions of strangers watched family tension unfold online. And once that clip spread, the internet completely changed how it viewed Boosie Badazz emotionally. But perhaps the most shocking example of public humiliation came from T.I. and his daughter Deja Harris. Because unlike internet rumors or leaked screenshots, the controversy came directly from his own words during a podcast interview. When T.I. publicly discussed taking his daughter to gynecologist appointments to monitor her virginity, social media exploded instantly. Doctors responded. Celebrities reacted. Mental health conversations started trending. And while the internet argued about parenting boundaries publicly, Deja remained mostly silent at first, until she finally admitted the situation damaged their relationship deeply behind the scenes. That confession changed everything emotionally, because now fans weren't just debating celebrity headlines anymore. They were watching children publicly process pain connected to fathers millions of people admired. And once social media started noticing the same pattern repeating across rapper after rapper, people began asking a terrifying question. How many celebrity fathers built legendary public images while their own children quietly struggled emotionally behind the scenes? The moment these children stopped staying quiet publicly, the entire internet started looking at these rappers differently forever. Because once a son or daughter speaks emotionally on camera, fans stop seeing celebrity drama and start seeing family damage. And honestly, that's what made the situation involving 50 Cent and his son Marquise Jackson so explosive online. At first, people assumed their relationship problems were just normal fallout from a messy custody battle. Fans blamed the mothers, the courts, fame, miscommunication. But then the leaked text messages surfaced, and everything changed. According to screenshots that spread online years ago, Marquise allegedly received brutally cold messages from his father discussing paternity doubts, cutting communication, and emotionally distancing himself completely. The internet lost it instantly, because this wasn't just gossip anymore. These looked like private father-son wounds exploding publicly in real time. And what made it even more painful emotionally was hearing Marquise openly admit he once idolized 50 Cent as a child. That detail destroyed fans emotionally. One viral post reportedly said, Imagine your superhero becoming your biggest heartbreak. That line spread everywhere. And things only got uglier over time. When Marquise criticized the amount of child support publicly years later, social media exploded again. Some fans mocked him for sounding entitled. Others argued the real issue was emotional neglect, not money. Then came the comment that permanently changed public perception. After Marquise posted a photo involving one of 50's rivals, 50 Cent jumped online saying he wouldn't care if both got hit by a bus. Even though he later softened the statement, the internet never forgot it. Ever. That moment became symbolic of their entire relationship publicly. Bitterness, ego, emotional distance, and unresolved pain. But then came the first major twist nobody expected. Marquise later admitted he'd still sit down with his father if given the chance. That confession stunned people emotionally, because despite years of public humiliation and tension, the son still wanted the relationship. That realization made the story infinitely sadder. But the emotional damage didn't stop there. The situation involving Ghostface Killah and his son Infinite Coles became one of the most heartbreaking identity conflicts hip-hop has seen publicly. Because unlike many stories focused mainly on money or absence, this one centered around acceptance. Infinite openly discussed feeling rejected after embracing his sexuality and artistic identity publicly. According to him, the relationship allegedly changed once his father became uncomfortable with who he was becoming. And when Infinite finally posted online calling Ghostface Killah a deadbeat publicly, fans were stunned. Not just because of the accusation, but because of WHO, Ghostface was emotionally to hip-hop. This was the same artist famous for emotionally vulnerable music, pain-filled storytelling, and heartfelt records about family struggle. That contradiction hit hard online. And then Infinite turned the pain into music. His album titles, the lyrics, the references to makeup and masculinity, the emotional storytelling, fans described it like watching generational trauma unfold publicly through songs. And honestly, that's what made the situation feel so heavy emotionally. Because Infinite repeatedly said he didn't want revenge. He wanted acknowledgement, love, acceptance. That made the public reaction split instantly. Some fans defended Ghostface Killah, arguing older street generations often struggle emotionally with identity conversations. Others argued none of that excuses emotional rejection from a parent. The internet became deeply divided, but then things escalated again with Coi Leray and Benzino. And honestly, this might have been the most publicly humiliating father-child fallout of them all, because it happened during the exact moment her career exploded. While she was charting songs, getting major interviews, and becoming one of rap's hottest new artists, Benzino allegedly kept criticizing, arguing, and creating internet drama publicly. Then came the live stream, the crying, the emotional exhaustion in her voice. That's when fans stopped laughing and started feeling uncomfortable, because she openly accused him of being bitter instead of supportive. She claimed he only reached out when it benefited him publicly. She even alleged he tried using her fame for his own opportunities. That live stream changed everything. One quote especially went viral. "Instead of being a father, you still want to be bitter." That line spread across TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter instantly. And according to fans online, it perfectly summarized the emotional issue underneath many of these stories. Some children felt like their fathers cared more about image than connection. But just when the internet thought these situations couldn't get any more emotionally intense, another shocking twist changed the conversation completely. Because one rapper's daughter didn't just accuse her father of emotional absence, she accused him of publicly humiliating her in front of the entire world. That daughter was T.I.'s daughter, Deja Harris. And honestly, the second that podcast clip went viral, the internet exploded harder than almost any father-child controversy hip-hop had seen before. Because unlike vague rumors, leaked texts, or emotional live streams, this came directly from the father himself. During a podcast interview, T.I. openly discussed accompanying Deja to gynecologist appointments and checking her virginity status yearly. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Doctors started responding publicly. Celebrities reacted online. Mental health experts spoke out. Women across social media described the comments as humiliating, invasive, and emotionally damaging. And suddenly, a conversation that started as celebrity gossip transformed into something much bigger. Now people were debating bodily autonomy, parenting boundaries, public humiliation, and emotional control. But the most heartbreaking part came afterward. Because while the internet screamed non-stop online, Deja herself stayed mostly silent publicly for a while. That silence made people even more uncomfortable. Then eventually she opened up emotionally during a family reality show conversation, and fans instantly realized the damage went way deeper than headlines. She admitted she felt uncomfortable, embarrassed, hurt, and most painfully, disconnected from her father afterward. One quote especially hit people hard emotionally. "Since the news broke, my dad and I haven't spoken." That line changed everything, because suddenly people stopped viewing the situation as just another controversial podcast moment. Now it looked like a father accidentally damaging his relationship with his daughter publicly in front of millions. And according to fans online, T.I. never fully recovered from that image shift publicly afterward. But then came another twist nobody expected. The internet started revisiting other rapper parenting controversies all at once. Suddenly, people connected everything together. Emotional neglect, public embarrassment, absent fathers, social media callouts, ego clashes, and children processing pain publicly. That's when Boosie Badaz's situation exploded again too. Because unlike Deja's situation, focused mainly on privacy and control, Boosie's controversy centered around sexuality and emotional rejection. His daughter Ivy eventually went live emotionally discussing how hurt she felt by repeated comments he made publicly about her being gay. But what made the live stream devastating wasn't screaming. It was disappointment. She sounded tired, exhausted, like somebody emotionally drained from years of trying to feel understood. And once she said, "You just don't care about my feelings," social media froze. That line hit people hard, because suddenly millions of fans who admired Boosie Badaz for his honesty and family loyalty were forced to confront the possibility that his own daughter allegedly felt emotionally unseen by him. The internet immediately divided into war zones. Some fans defended Boosie aggressively, arguing generational differences and Southern street culture shaped his worldview. Others argued none of that justified publicly discussing his daughter's sexuality repeatedly. The backlash became massive, and then another shocking realization started spreading online. A lot of these fathers weren't being exposed by strangers. Their own children voluntarily spoke out emotionally despite knowing millions of people would see it. That detail changed the emotional weight completely, because audiences started thinking, how hurt do you have to be to publicly challenge your famous father online? That question haunted every story afterward, especially the situation involving Birdman. Because unlike the others, his controversy wasn't built around yelling, live streams, or direct internet feuds. It was built around absence and contrast. Fans noticed something strange for years. Birdman publicly treated Lil Wayne like a son in front of the world, while his actual biological children remained mostly invisible publicly. That contrast became increasingly uncomfortable online over time, especially once lawsuits and financial tensions between Birdman and Wayne surfaced publicly later. Because suddenly fans began questioning whether the emotional father-son branding around Cash Money was more complicated than it first appeared. And once old clips resurfaced again, the internet started reanalyzing everything. That's the terrifying thing about modern social media. Nothing stays buried anymore, ever. One old interview resurfaces. A new generation discovers it. One emotional live stream trends. Years of parenting criticism come back instantly. One podcast clip spreads. Entire public reputations shift permanently overnight. But perhaps the darkest reveal in this entire conversation came when fans started realizing many of these children weren't necessarily asking for money at all. They wanted attention, validation, support, understanding, time, or emotional connection. And according to social media reactions, that realization made these stories infinitely sadder than ordinary celebrity drama. Because now people weren't just watching rap legends anymore, they were watching children publicly mourn relationships that still existed physically, but allegedly felt emotionally broken behind the scenes. Once these stories started going viral consistently, the internet completely changed how it viewed rapper fatherhood forever. Because suddenly fans weren't just looking at hit records, luxury cars, interviews, or business success anymore. They were looking at the children standing behind the fame emotionally. And honestly, that shift made the reactions online absolutely brutal. TikTok became flooded with emotional edits, showing rappers praising family values in interviews next to clips of their children crying, venting, or exposing emotional pain publicly. One viral edit comparing 50 Cent's motivational speeches to Marquise Jackson discussing heartbreak reportedly gained millions of views in days. The caption, "Everybody's hero is somebody else's disappointment." That line hit social media like a truck. And once audiences emotionally connected to these stories, every old interview started getting re-examined differently. People revisited podcast clips, award speeches, reality shows, family photos. Suddenly, fans started asking, was the image always different from reality? That question spread everywhere, especially after Deja Harris's situation with T.I. exploded publicly, because the backlash there went far beyond hip-hop gossip. Doctors, therapists, women's health organizations, celebrities, and parenting commentators all entered the conversation. News outlets discussed bodily autonomy. Mental health pages discussed humiliation and trust. The controversy escaped entertainment culture completely. That made the fallout feel much heavier than ordinary internet drama. Meanwhile, supporters of T.I. argued the internet was exaggerating his intentions and ignoring cultural context around overprotective parenting. The arguments became endless. And honestly, that's why these stories stayed trending for so long. There were no clean villains or heroes emotionally, just damaged relationships people projected their own experiences onto. That emotional relatability made everything explode bigger, especially among younger audiences. Because many viewers weren't even reacting as hip-hop fans anymore. They were reacting as sons and daughters themselves. And that's where the reactions around Boosie Badazz became incredibly intense online too. Some fans defended him aggressively by pointing to his upbringing, trauma, and street mentality. Others argued emotional damage doesn't become acceptable simply because somebody grew up in a different generation. One viral tweet reportedly said, "Providing money without emotional support creates strangers with the same last name." That post spread everywhere. And once social media started framing these rapper-child conflicts around emotional neglect instead of just celebrity drama, the conversations became way more personal for audiences. But then the industry itself started reacting awkwardly too, because many rappers who built careers around family loyalty suddenly became nervous discussing parenting publicly in interviews. Fans noticed it. Interviewers became more careful, asking questions about children and family dynamics after watching how badly certain situations exploded online. Some celebrities even stopped posting their kids publicly as much afterward. And according to Entertainment Insiders, several artists allegedly became paranoid about private family conversations leaking online through live streams, screenshots, or emotional interviews later, especially after what happened between Benzino and Coi Leray. Because that situation terrified celebrities for one specific reason. The daughter became more publicly loved than the father during the conflict. That power shift shocked people. For years, parents in celebrity culture usually controlled narratives publicly, but social media changed that completely. Now children can go live instantly, post screenshots instantly, tell their stories directly to millions without media gatekeepers. And audiences usually side emotionally with vulnerability first. That's why so many people online believed Coi Leray almost immediately when she cried, discussing feeling unsupported emotionally by her father. The livestream felt raw, real, unfiltered. And once audiences feel emotional pain authentically, public perception changes fast. But perhaps the biggest reaction of all came from older hip-hop fans realizing how many rappers they admired likely carried unresolved trauma into fatherhood themselves. That realization changed everything emotionally. Take Lil Wayne openly discussing abandonment from his own father, or Birdman losing parents young and growing up emotionally hardened by survival culture, or 50 Cent surviving violence, poverty, and paranoia before fame. Suddenly, fans started seeing a painful cycle repeating itself across generations. Traumatized boys becoming emotionally complicated fathers, then their children publicly processing the consequences later. That realization made the entire conversation darker than celebrity gossip. Now it felt tragic. And according to social media reactions, many fans started asking whether hip-hop culture itself ever truly taught emotional vulnerability to men beyond pain, anger, money, and survival. That question became huge online, especially because younger generations increasingly value emotional presence communication, accountability, and mental health conversations, which means many older rapper parenting styles started clashing violently with modern expectations publicly. And just when people thought these stories couldn't get any more emotionally uncomfortable, one final realization changed the conversation completely. The deeper people looked into these stories, the more one painful realization started becoming impossible to ignore. A lot of these children weren't exposing their fathers because they hated them. They were exposing them because they still wanted them emotionally. And honestly, that might be the saddest twist in this entire conversation. Because behind the live streams, interviews, tweets, screenshots, and public arguments was usually one thing repeated over and over again. I just wanted my father to care. That's what made Marquise Jackson's situation with 50 Cent so haunting emotionally. Even after years of internet jokes, public tension, and brutal comments, he still openly admitted he would sit down with his father if given the chance. That shocked fans, because the internet expected pure hatred by that point. Instead, what they saw looked more like unresolved heartbreak. And once audiences realized many of these children still desperately wanted emotional connection despite everything, the stories became infinitely darker, especially when fans revisited old clips of these rappers talking about loyalty, family, and pain in their music. Because suddenly listeners started hearing contradictions everywhere. Songs about fatherhood, interviews about protecting family, lyrics about trauma and survival, all while their own children later described feeling emotionally distant from them privately. That contrast became impossible for the internet to stop analyzing. And then came another terrifying realization. A lot of these fathers allegedly repeated cycles they once hated themselves. Lil Wayne openly admitted growing up without his father. Birdman experienced devastating family trauma extremely young. 50 Cent survived environments built on emotional survival instead of vulnerability. Fans started wondering, did fame and money actually heal these men emotionally? Or simply hide the damage better? That question changed everything. Because now, audiences weren't just watching celebrity family drama anymore, they were watching generational trauma unfold publicly across millions of screens. And according to internet reactions, that realization made the stories feel deeply tragic instead of simply entertaining. But here's where the final twist becomes really uncomfortable. Some fans started pointing out that many of these rappers seem far more emotionally expressive in music than in real life. Think about it. Ghostface Killah made emotionally vulnerable classics discussing pain and struggle, while his son later described feeling emotionally rejected. Boosie Badazz constantly speaks passionately about family loyalty, while his daughter publicly questioned whether he cared about her feelings at all. Future built entire albums around heartbreak and emotional emptiness, while critics accused him of being emotionally absent from his own children's lives. That contradiction haunted social media, and honestly, it forced many fans to confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes celebrities become better at performing emotion than actually living it privately. That idea spread across TikTok and YouTube discussions rapidly. And once younger audiences started viewing these rapper-child conflicts through mental health and emotional intelligence conversations, the older money equals good parenting mindset started collapsing publicly, because many viewers no longer cared only about child support, gifts, cars, houses, or financial providing. They cared about attention, emotional presence, communication, accountability, and genuine connection. That generational shift completely changed how audiences judge celebrity fathers online. But then came perhaps the darkest realization of all. Social media itself may have permanently destroyed any chance for some of these relationships to heal privately. Because once millions of strangers become emotionally invested in family pain, every apology becomes public. Every disagreement trends. Every interview gets dissected. Every awkward interaction becomes meme content forever. And, according to entertainment insiders, several celebrities allegedly regret responding publicly during emotional family conflicts because the internet never lets those moments die afterward. Ever. One live stream clip resurfaces. The arguments restart. One screenshot trends again. The pain comes back. One podcast quote goes viral. Years of healing allegedly collapse instantly. That cycle never ends anymore. And that's why some of these stories feel so hopeless emotionally now. Because even if fathers and children secretly try rebuilding relationships privately, The internet keeps dragging old wounds back into public view repeatedly. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part of all this is realizing many of these children grew up watching millions of strangers admire men they privately struggled to connect with emotionally themselves. Imagine that. Watching the world celebrate somebody you just wanted to call you back. Watching fans call somebody the greatest father ever while feeling invisible privately. That emotional contradiction sits underneath almost every story in this video. And according to social media reactions tonight, people are starting to realize these stories may reveal something much deeper about fame, masculinity, trauma, and fatherhood inside hip-hop culture than anybody wanted to admit publicly before. Which means somewhere in the industry right now, there are probably other celebrity children still sitting silently, watching the internet praise fathers they may have completely different experiences with behind closed doors. So after hearing all these stories, what do you honestly think? Do you believe these rappers were unfairly exposed publicly by emotional family moments that should have stayed private? Or do you think their children had every right to finally speak up after years of feeling ignored, embarrassed, or emotionally hurt behind the scenes? Because honestly, this conversation goes way deeper than celebrity gossip. When Marquise Jackson spoke about 50 Cent, people didn't just see internet drama. They saw a son who still sounded hurt years later. When Coi Leray cried talking about Benzino, fans didn't just hear accusations, they heard disappointment. And when daughters like Deja Harris and Ivy publicly discussed feeling emotionally uncomfortable or unsupported by fathers millions of people admired, the internet suddenly started questioning what celebrity fatherhood really looks like behind closed doors. So now I want to hear from you. Which story shocked you the most? Which rapper do you think got judged too harshly? And which situation do you believe revealed the deepest emotional pain publicly? Also, be honest. Do you think fame and money make parenting harder for celebrities? Or do you think some rappers simply never learned how to become emotionally present fathers despite all their success? Because the comments online about this topic have become absolutely divided. Some people believe providing financially should still earn respect no matter what. Others argue emotional absence creates wounds money can never fix. And trust me, this rabbit hole goes much deeper. There are still dozens of celebrity family conflicts, leaked interviews, emotional live streams, and private stories inside hip-hop culture that fans are only now starting to fully understand publicly. So hit that like button, subscribe, and turn notifications on right now, because the second another rapper family controversy, leaked message, emotional interview, or shocking celebrity fallout starts trending online, you already know we're breaking all of it down immediately.